Okay, let's move on a little bit before we have to close. So the body section has a couple more
Anatomical.
A couple more parts. So we'll go into the anatomical parts, and this is another of the practices. Each of these sections in mindfulness of the body, in a way, is considered a practice unto itself. And so you could say, I'm going to do a retreat now on mindfulness in all activities, or a retreat on mindfulness of breathing, or spend some time in my life doing this. So here's a practice of, in a way, deconstructing the physical body. So I often think, oh, my whole body is me. This is me here. So there's a mindfulness that says, okay, let's take apart the body into its parts. And as we read this text, let yourself kind of visualize that particular part as we name it in yourself, so that we're doing a kind of mini version of this practice. So let's read the anatomical parts. Do you want to read
Sure. Did you read?
Tuan.
Oh, you read.
Tuan read.
Again, monks and nuns, she reviews the same body up from the soles of the feet and down from the top of the hair. Enclosed by skin is full of many kinds of impurity thus. In this body there are head hairs, body hairs, nails, teeth, skin, flesh, sinews, bones, bone marrow, kidneys, heart, liver, diaphragm, spleen, lungs, bowels, mesentery, contents of the stomach, feces, bile, phlegm, pus, blood, sweat, fat, tears, grease, spittle, snot, oil of the joints, and urine. Just as though there were a bag with an opening at both ends full of many sorts of grain, such as hill rice, red rice, beans, peas, millet, and white rice, and a man with good eyes were to open it and review it thus: this is hill rice, this is red rice, these are beans, these are peas, this is millet, this is white rice. So too he reviews this same body.
Wonderful. So, take apart the body, look at all of its parts. This is a wonderful practice that some folks really take on. You just memorize the list, and then you just go down. Hair of the head. You can just sense the hair. Hair of the body. What's it like? Okay, I got that. Skin. And you just go down the list. Boom, boom, boom. One word about the bothersome word impurity in here. And really, I'll say two things about it. The first is just kind of a postmodern apology for a pre-modern culture that emphasized the impurity of the body, where a couple thousand years later the tantrics would say, no, the body is wonderful. It's all, it's light and it's divine, and that's also true. This contemplation is used in monastic practice. It's often one of the first contemplations a young monk is given. Show up at the monastery, 16, 17, 18 years old. A lot of drives, a lot of desires going on in the body. And you might be told to reflect on your own body and others. That it's basically just a bag of pus and blood and spit and shit and all the stuff. And you'll be particularly advised to look upon the body of another one passing by who might be attractive to you as, a bag of hill rice and red rice and beans with an opening at both ends that one might just categorize in that way. And that contemplation may have the effect, perhaps in a naive pre-modern mind, but maybe it still works, to undo the immediate fixation on grasping onto another's body or one's own body as beautiful. So it's used to encourage a kind of dispassion in relation to the body. As lay practitioners, so as not celibate monastics, that interpretation of this practice isn't so popular in the West. And I don't think it's, I don't think that's the implication of what is in the text. The core practice itself, if we put in kind of scare quotes the word impurity, But we could also notice, like, yeah, okay, I don't really like the word impurity, but, if I peeled open my body and like the contents of my stomach were all like, bleh, it would be a little gross. I'd be like, whoa, yuck. So to actually recognize that like, yeah, and sometimes when I'm, I will actually do this practice occasionally. Don't tell any of my friends that occasionally when I hug them or say hi to them, and they're beautiful, my lovely friends, I'll be like, wow, you're so beautiful. But I notice that what I really like is like your skin and the shape of your body on the outside. But even if we peeled back your skin just a little bit, I wouldn't be hardly as attracted. Amazing. And if I was looking on the inside, it might be very fascinating, but I don't know that I would like it in the same way as I'm really liking just looking at you, my friend. So sometimes I'll just do this little deconstruction. I'll be like, hi, my friend. Ooh, okay. So that is one of the traditional ways of using this practice. And it can be used really as a concentration practice. Let yourself in meditation just feel into nails. Oh, nails. This is mindfulness of pedicure that you were talking about earlier. Oh, the nails. And then as it gets deeper into the body, bile. How do you become mindful of bile? Right? Kind of let your attention sort of sink in there and be like, oh, what's it like? It's kind of like that. So, mindfulness of the whole body in its activities, mindfulness of the body in its postures, now mindfulness of the body in its parts. Right? Part of what we're doing is we're just taking apart the experience of having a body in all these different constituent ways. So we don't assume anything, right? But what's here? Bones, flesh, like that. Any questions? The parts of the body, contemplation. Super. Let's just keep reading a tiny bit before we end. We get through the body.
Where's the refrain?
Go ahead and read the refrain for fun.
In this way, in regard to the body, he abides contemplating the body internally, externally, both internally and externally. He abides contemplating the nature of arising, of passing away, of both arising and passing away in the body. Mindfulness that there is a body is established in him to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and continuous mindfulness, and he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That too is how, in regard to the body, he abides contemplating the body.
Beautiful. So just as we can contemplate the body in its kind of physical constituent parts, another one of the maps that this culture used to understand the material world was the map of the four elements. So then, let's read the next contemplation.
Again, monks, she reviews this same body, however it is placed, however disposed, as consisting of elements thus. In this body there are the earth element, the water element, the fire element, and the air element. Just as though a skilled butcher or his apprentice had killed a cow and was seated at a crossroads with it cut up into pieces, so too she reviews this same body.
Wonderful. The similes just don't they?
It makes me think of, I was in Bali, and they had temples made out of animals that had been cut up.
Wow.
And so it was beautiful, and it stayed for the duration of the ceremony, which was one full moon to the next. So the flesh rotted each day at the altar, and you got to, it was a very potent image in transience and form.
Yes.
And so what started off is like, you could see this was a pig, this was a cow, this was a chicken, and it was all carved and made into a beautiful aesthetic image, and there was one of flowers and one of meat right next to each other, and then they let them disintegrate over the course of the 28 days. The smell was also quite strong.
Yeah.
And that's, in reading this is reminding me of that, or just like the interns of the body being made external.
Absolutely.
Creates a really strong experience.
Absolutely. You're really waiting to read the next section, and I think we should just go ahead and read it. It's just on 5:30. Does anyone have to dash just now, or can we have you for 7 more minutes? All right. So, thank you. So, in brief about the elements, right? I'm not even going to go into in brief on the elements. We've heard lots of teachings on the 4 elements, right? The earth element, here is the elements in brief. The earth element manifests the quality of stability or solidness. Right? The fire element manifests the quality of temperature or heat. Of course, both heat and coolness is the fire element. The water element manifests the quality of cohesion, so that which holds together, right? You have a ball of dough. If it's just flour, it's just flour. But with water, it coheres into dough. So water holds the body together, holds everything together. And then the air element manifests the quality of movement. So every kind of movement, from moving the limb in the air to the movement of breath, is all air element. So in the contemplation then, as I'm attending to the body, when I'm moving, I might note, now I'm lifting the arm, right? That would be the previous contemplation, noting the physical gesture. But I also might just note, like, movement, like air. Right? I could just feel movement itself, mindful of movement itself as the air element, or mindful just of the fact that my body kind of occupies a space, like it coheres, like, oh, the water element. And I might also feel the wateriness of the body itself, right? Or earth, just the contemplation on earth, like feeling stability. And just focus on the bare quality of stability or solidness in the body would be a contemplation on earth. And you could just say earth and feel that stability, earth. And focus on that aspect of physical experience. Sweet. So we're really, again, taking apart physical experience, and now we are going to do the contemplation. We're going to read the contemplation that Jay was suggesting. We'll skip the refrain this time. It's the same. And we'll read the last of the body contemplations. These are often called the charnel ground contemplations or the cemetery contemplations. And as we read them, and I'll read these, since we skipped me on the way around, and it's the last one. You can, if you want to close your eyes and just visualize each of the images as I say them. And this is quite, again, it's quite a serious contemplation on the nature of the body and the inevitable transience of the body. Again, monks, as though she were to see a corpse thrown aside in a charnel ground, 1, 2, or 3 days dead, bloated, livid, and oozing matter, being devoured by crows, hawks, vultures, dogs, jackals, or various kinds of worms. A skeleton with flesh and blood held together with sinews. A fleshless skeleton smeared with blood held together with sinews. A skeleton without flesh and blood held together with sinews. Disconnected bones scattered in all directions. Bones bleached white, the color of shells. Bones heaped up, more than a year old. Bones rotten and crumbling to dust. He compares this same body with it thus. This body too is of the same nature. It will be like that. It is not exempt from that fate. In this way, in regard to the body, she abides contemplating the body internally, externally, both internally and externally. She abides contemplating the nature of arising, of passing away, of both arising and passing away in the body. Mindfulness that there is a body is established in her to the extent necessary for bare knowledge and continuous mindfulness. And he abides independent, not clinging to anything in the world. That too is how, in regard to the body, he abides contemplating the body. So this last of the body contemplations takes us all the way back to dust. And these are 9 images of a corpse in decay. And we don't get to see a corpse in decay much in modern society. Some folks, when studying these, will look at photographs of bodies in each of these stages. There's stacks of photographs that make their way around the Vipassana community for people to do this practice with. Some monks will, as part of their practice, go and observe autopsies or go to see dissections in order to practice this with actual bodies. And some monks and nuns in places like India where they actually do have charnel grounds will actually go there and practice them. And in the text, each of the individual reflections is followed by the whole refrain. So it's actually quite a long section. And the encouragement both to see this form in each of these stages, and in each stage then you recognize this body too is of this same nature. This will happen to me. I'm not exempt from this. And that refrain over and over, this will happen to this body. This body is not exempt from this fate. And then going through each of these stages, all the way to bones bleached and scattered, becoming dust. And a very deep reflection on that reality. So we can talk about that more next time, but any just immediate kind of responses to that passage or any of the body contemplations?
I know they're kind of gruesome a little bit, but I kind of like them for some reason. I think it kind of demystifies a lot of stuff. You know, if you think about stuff like that, you don't. Somehow, the more you think about it, it doesn't quite seem so bad. But at the same time, it sort of makes me think that that's really all there is without mindfulness. So that then when you take the mindfulness and you add it to that, then you've kind of got the whole thing. So if you just take away the mindfulness, then really that's all you have anyway.
Right. This is going to happen no matter what.
Yeah,
know?
but it's almost like then when you, because so often it's just like we're not aware of.
I think our culture is, we don't see death often in our culture. So like when there's an accident, everybody has to stop.
Yep.
Everyone has to stop because we're so unfamiliar with it. And you go, why is everyone stopping? And
Right.
you just need to see because we forget.
You know, I remember seeing my mother die and kind of hanging out with her body afterward. And I had been practicing some time by the time she went, and just being like, wow, okay, right. Here's her body, but it's not her. Like, she's gone. Mm-hmm. And there's kind of this, you know, kind of bloated, heavy body. Exactly like the beginning of the description, you know, one day dead. That's as far as I got with her. You know, we didn't get to... And in some traditions, you'll keep the body around for a long time and get to see some more of these stages. But, you know, a lot of practitioners go and do hospice work because putting yourself in the presence of the reality of death is so powerful for practice. You know, you want something to make you ardent, you know, and aware of what's true.
Clearly
like,
knowing.
Clearly knowing. Like, go watch somebody die. And be like, oh, you know, wow. Yesterday I was totally like talking with you about like sequins and like the gown you wore. And today, like, your mouth is just open, like, and it's gone. You know. So it's quite moving to me that they're in here. You know, that they're and that the Buddha felt it so important to mindfulness that you know, they're in there as a very clear practice, like, and really describes all the stages. He doesn't just say, and there's mindfulness of the body, you know, alive, and mindfulness of the body dead, but really getting the physicality. You know, first it says, yeah, the head hair, the skin hair, the butt, you know, all the stuff, the guts, and then it says, yeah, and then just the basic elements. There's no such thing as bones. There's just earth element and water element, and then, you know, if you still thought that there was anything, you know, to hold on to there, then bloated, livid, and oozing, you know, held together by sinews, no sinews, like turning to dust. So, anything else before we close? Thanks so much for staying a little bit.
I just wanted to say I really appreciated the conversation about just sort of combing through that dichotomy of mindfulness and the sort of joyride sort of aspect of
Yeah.
who we are. It's helpful.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's a lot more in that direction to be said. Like in a way, that investigation, how do we do that, is at the heart of kind of how we enliven our lives with practice nowadays. Because we're not monastics, we're not renunciates in that way. You know? So, all right, let's close it up. Thank you for being here. We'll bring palms together. In whatever way this study and practice together is enlivening of our own hearts, enlivening of our beings in contact with the world, in intimacy with this body, in all its changes, may our practice be a momentum toward more and more intimacy and freedom, vibrancy, clear seeing, love, in this body, in others' bodies, in the whole world as body. So may we all be well in all ways. Let's sing Om once to close. Wonderful. Touching thumbs to the third eye. May we see clearly. And bowing to love the earth, the body, and all of it. And rising, honoring everyone as that. Namaste.
Namaste.
All right, thanks so much. Really sweet to be with you all again. 2 more weeks of this. We'll dive further into the text. We'll break out from body into all sorts of other contemplations, rich and wonderful. 2:30 next Saturday. And I'm happy to see you again.